Sure.
Okay, how can I help?
Well, we're just looking at this. Are these this Geopinopsis, whatever it was that Ken found?
Guapineopsis alpinus. Subalpinus? Alpinus, I think.
Okay. And these are like, these are probably an eighth of an inch, looks like about.
Yeah, they dehydrate and rehydrate whenever you get, it just depends on the weather cycle. Moisture, they rehydrate, come back
Kind
to
of like
life
the,
again.
kind of like the wood air, huh? I've seen these.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, I think I've seen these. Just kind of, they look like a little yellow crud or orangish crud on there, and then when it gets, it soaks right up.
Yep.
Ed, what was tell us about this one?
I have that's just I don't know what type of tree that was. The tree is pretty far gone. I don't know. I'm guessing it's a fungus of some sort, but I have no clue. Doesn't look like the same thing, but
Looks like a lichen to me. Fire squat.
yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't realize I included that picture.
How big
Yeah.
is?
I believe it's a fungus, and I think I have it in my book, but it might be just a similar one. And I'm looking.
How big is that stick there?
That whole thing is probably the size of my thumb,
Okay.
like the size of a thumb.
Yeah.
So pretty small also.
It's really pretty, really bright, huh? But it catches the eye.
Yeah.
I think Don's looking that up. I have a
Looking for
lichen book upstairs. Maybe I should go get it. I don't know if it is a lichen though. I'm not gonna be able- I don't know. I'll leave it to Don to look it up.
Oh, I think.
Don't wait for me.
Okay.
Why don't you
Well,
move on to
let's-
the next one, and I'll come in.
Move on to the next one.
Fine.
Oh wow, look at that! Look at that interesting mycelium.
Very cool.
Wow, you've got a good camera, man. Is that just my phone?
It's just on my phone.
Yeah,
Sometimes it does really well. Sometimes it's pretty tough.
yeah. I like how you can see it spreading out. A lot of times the mycelium is just kind of the matty stuff, but this you can totally see the little
Yeah.
stuff going out. Ooh, that's thick. Yeah, interesting. This is where around the edges of these, I would think you would start finding some snowbank mushrooms.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
All right, this one's me. This was my one. Well, I found a couple of decent things, I guess, but went on a little walk with my daughter the other night, and we found a bunch of little caprinus. I think I have a picture of those, and then this oyster is right here. I have it. This is a little bit dried out. I mean, it's probably fresh enough to be edible still, but not necessarily great. But we had a good time finding that. Let's see, Ken. How about this? Tell us the story about this then.
Yeah, that was that's just in the volleyball court, in the courtyard of my apartment complex. It's all sandy. I found other mushrooms before in like the soil area, and these just popped up. I'm pretty sure they're Caprinus comatus. I let them dissolve into ink, which is kind of gross.
Coprinus comatus.
Yeah, comatus.
Well, I say Caprinus Caprinus.
You get some ink out of
But
it.
yeah, here's your ink.
Yeah.
Do those
Pretty
usually
gross.
pop up in a group like that, or are they usually on their own?
No, they usually cluster. You'll
Okay.
find, yeah,
Really?
that's quite a large group.
Out of them too.
They're an
Yeah, that-
excellent edible, by the way, in case you don't know.
It's really
did-
cool.
Those.
Did you say they're edible? By the way, why do you dissolve them in your ink?
You can use it to write and paint with, so I'm going to try that.
The ink traditionally has been used as an ink.
Oh, but they're also edible.
Yes,
Before they
prior to the time they deliquesce or changed or turned to ink.
Huh, interesting. Thanks.
They're perfectly white all the way through, and they begin to turn kind of a pink color, and then they turn to black. And
Oh,
I understand you can still eat them after they've turned black. They kind of have a unique flavor, I guess. I've never tried them.
I haven't either that late. Somebody, I think it was at the mushroom dinner, someone was talking about how they like them really late. Maybe it's somewhere else. But they like them when they're pretty old because they have this very, very, unique flavor. And I they look bad enough when they start turning black that I have a hard time deciding to eat them. But yeah, in fact, these right here,
Yeah, there are two gone, I think.
one
and
right
there-
here is pretty old. It was probably half dissolved anyway.
And they were too sandy, was the problem.
Yeah, that'd be part of it. Yeah.
And I'm guessing this is like a seed or a spore dispersal method.
Yes,
for
it
how
is.
it's like a evolutionary trait that helps as it's a liquid, it would spread better.
Yes,
Well-
it doesn't get spread by the wind, but it flows readily.
It drips away. And in fact, when you do find a fresh one of any of these coprinoids, that they call them coprinoids that are in the Coprinus family, the Coprinaceae, their gills are too close to drop spores. I mean, you couldn't, because they're all just jammed up together, and so they couldn't really drop them anyway. And I guess that's just how they evolved. But yeah, they dissolve and the spores are black, and so it turns black and they dissolve away and kind of drip away and blow away that way. So for sure. And these only last so after their prime.
Yeah.
Up in a day or so, and then another day and they're out, and you'll just see a stalk sometimes. A lot of times I'll just see a stalk, tiny little bit on top because all the rest of it just dissolved away and dripped off.
I found it took about like 3 days in a cup to fully dissolve just the cap.
interesting.
That's a point on that color change from the white gills to the deliquescent black color, is that many of the mushrooms will change color as the spores mature, and that's because the spores are a different color than the gills were originally, and the gills take on the color of the mature spores. That's true with the agaricus, which start out with white or pink gills, and as they mature, the spores mature, the gills turn brown from the spores.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the next one here. Let's see. Oh, this one is Vans. That's a nice little patch of oysters, looks like there.
There you go.
Yeah, that was a good find. I was wandering around by the river for about 3 hours and stumbled on that. And I pulled up. You look to the right, you could see some more peeking out. And I pulled that bark off and came up with quite a bit of.
Oh, over here.
Yeah.
Right
That
on.
bark just pulls off, and I mean it's just filled under there.
Oh,
So I was kind of happy about that. You know, I was out fishing on the Provo River, and there's more fishermen than fish, and I was just kind of wandering around in the woods and the willows. There's a ton of dead wood down there, but I don't know. I found that just by accident, of course. But and that's the
is
tree.
this the tree it was on?
That's the tree, and the bottom part's in another picture. But yeah, it's a dead tree. But yeah,
And this is after you pulled them out, huh?
yeah.
Nice and fresh.
They had bark. You had to peel the bark off of them. But they
Yeah.
were pretty good.
Those are really nice and fresh.
Yeah, they really kept their texture.
That's good.
So for the one time ever, I had my GPS so I can find it again. Otherwise, I would never be able to go back there.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Let me, what have we missed? Find. Oh, I think I have to close this and reopen it to see. Oh, maybe I can just close this. Let's see. I had one more at the beginning here that I didn't get. Oh yeah, a couple more. So I skipped me. That's okay. So this one I found the same day I found the big oyster, Pleurotus. And I haven't yet identified this, but I like this because, I mean, there were quite a few of these just in the mulch. There's a new development going up near my house. And actually around the corner, there's another yard with a bunch of mulch, and they get these every year. And just sometimes you'll look down in a little, their 15-foot wide, 20-foot wide yard. There'll be just dozens of these just popping up all over, and they're not clustered like they are with a lot of Caprinus, like with the Atramentaria and the Micaceus, those two species that typically grow in big clusters. These are just one by one, but there are quite a few of them, sometimes two together.
Are they growing in a ring?
They're not. No, they've just scattered.
You are sure that they're not Micaceus or Atramentarius?
Definitely not either.
Okay. It is a coprinoid mushroom.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys have been following Mushrooms of Utah lately, but there's a guy by the name of, I think, Michael Beekman, who is very knowledgeable on the Coprinus. In fact, you might try posting this there and see if he responds to it.
Yeah.
He's a little bit obnoxious, but he's very knowledgeable still. And he tells us that there's X number of dozens of different coprinoid mushrooms that are in and around the Micaceus and Atramentarius species.
Yeah. And the Micaceus is the first mushroom I actually learned to identify, I think. And I know it, I see it often enough that I know it really well. And this is not Micaceus. It is pretty closely related, but it's definitely a different species. And I have not yet had a chance to, I got this last night and didn't have a chance to really study it. And so of course now it's just came in and today, and where I'd set it down on a table, half of it just melted onto the table. So I need to go scrub it off now because it dissolved, finished dissolving into a little glup. But I also really liked that seeing these mycelia, the mycelium, it kind of almost like the mycelium that you get with
Albariza.
Phytocebi albariza. Not quite as thick, but very similar in these really stringiness that I picked it up and it pulls up a bunch of the mulch that it was growing on with it, just with the mycelium. So I thought that was interesting. Not all of them that I found had that. To some extent, you could see a little bit, but this one was particularly noticeable. And then, there we go. Let's see. Then okay, so then I went up into Mill Creek Canyon yesterday, trying to find something, and I ended up getting a phone call from work as I was going in, and I had to. So I was only there for like 5 minutes with a couple of my kids. But I found this, and I wanted to look at this and identify this. It's this white one here, and I pulled it off. At first glance, I thought it was Enteromyces leucospongia, which is that really marshmallowy one, but it's not. And it had a stalk, and I picked it off, and it's got this stalk. It left So this spot right there, that's where it was attached to the wood, and then this is the thing underneath, and it's unfortunately it's a little bit blurry there. I think I've got it. Let me see. Oh yeah, here it is. I've got it right here, and I thought at first they were little tiny spikes. I don't think they are. They are little tiny pores on the underside, but then it's just a clear white on top, and just and almost like a bracket fungus, like a conch underneath with those tiny pores. But it was on that little stalk, and so I haven't yet had a chance to identify it, but. Given that this was one of just a few kinds of mushrooms that I have seen in the last couple of months, I thought it was notable enough that I wanted to take a look at it. Have a thought, Don, what that might be?
I'm kind of wondering if it might be just a distorted, I think it's Polyporus elegans is one of them. There's a black foot and a black leg polypore. Badius, Polyporus badius, and Polyporus elegans. Badius is a black leg, and that resembles that pretty closely.
Well, let's see. Yeah, this Polyporus elegans also now apparently is named Polyporus varius. But yeah, that definitely looks very much like. Here's the picture I'm seeing in this book with that black foot for sure. I think you're right on the money there. I think that's what it is.
The only problem is they're typically completely round without any.
Well, this was yeah. If you look at this though, this was growing just on the edge of this wood. I mean, out from the wood, and so it may have just been kind of squished by the where it could grow. It couldn't grow to be round.
Yeah,
It didn't have any space to grow. Yeah, you might be right. I don't know. I'd have to, but I'll look more into that because I still want to identify that for certain and do some study, a little bit of study on it. And then I have to tell you my real find. I was walking and I saw this little thing, and now in the picture it looks like a morel, but when I saw it, it didn't look like it. It just looked like some little blob of stuff. And then I go down and I look more closely at it, and this is about what it looked like on top. And I said, well, I think that might be a mushroom. And I was poking at it and looking at it, and I said, yeah, that feels like a mushroom. And I looked more closely and I said, oh, that looks like a morel. I've never seen a blonde or a yellowish blonde morel before. I mean, I've seen pictures, but I'd never found one. And I found this in the mulch. Again, I mean, you read about finding them in mulch near my house. So I found that, and then one more that was there. And then I told Jasper where I found them, and he went and, oh, this is the other one that I found, that second one. So I just found the two. And I think they're all the little intricacies and little folds are really, I think they're beautiful. I like morel.
Look almost sunburnt, Adam. Or like it dried out. It looks like it was almost sunburnt or dried out on top.
They were a little bit dry, and that first one was definitely dried up on top. Yeah.
It looked like it had been stepped on.
Yeah, I don't know. And then Jasper went out and found these 6 more, or 4 more, and then a couple more a little bit later. They are a little bit dried out. They're not. I mean, as you can see, they're a little dried out, but we still ate them.
Else. Yeah.
So I was super pleased that we found one, because people post these pictures of all these morels they find, and I'm always jealous because I haven't ever been able to find very many, and so now we found some. I still don't know where to look though, except in the mulch by my house, and I can tell you that's not going to be a very good fruiting position location forever, and it's not something that I can go around everybody else and just look through all the mulch beds in the city, because I go to riparian areas and I don't find anything, but I don't really know where to look or what to look for very well. But there you go.
Did you end up eating them yet?
We ate those, yeah, last night. They were delicious.
Is there any question?
Well,
Would you eat them with them?
what's that? How did I eat them?
Yeah.
Oh, I just fried them up. I just chopped them up and fried them up in some bacon grease, actually, because we just had bacon. And I put them out, and I mean, there's like 7.5 mushrooms, right? And I have 5 little kids, so there's 7 of us. And I bring them out, and I said, "Okay, come try the morels." And I kid you not, 10 seconds later, they were gone. 10 seconds, like. I just grabbed them all. Unfortunately, I got a couple pieces myself, and I was like, well, okay. And then we had a few agaricus just from the store in the fridge. So then I fried those up, and I came up and said, "More mushrooms." And 10 seconds later, those were all gone. So I don't know. Maybe it's not morels. It's just that they were good. The mushrooms, I mean. So
Very cool.
I find it easy to cook with stuff because I like cooking, and so I find it easy to use stuff. I just have a hard time sometimes finding enough stuff to eat.
Yeah.
Or mushrooms, I mean. Well, any other questions? Oh, Don, you weren't here.
You want to? Yeah, I can talk about that. I guess that's kind of an interesting subject. Anyway, the Gyromitra montana. It's very controversial as far as the edibility is concerned. They are accused of having gyromitrin, which is why it's named a gyromitrin, I suppose. But there are many different species in Gyromitra genus, and there are supposedly only 2 of them. I think it's Gyromitra esculenta and
Infula?
I don't remember. Anyway, there are 2 that are quite poisonous and have significant amounts of gyromitrin in them. And you can make them edible by boiling them in water, several changes of water, and discarding the water, and then using them, fry them from that point. But this one, Gyromitra montana, and several of the others are very edible. They do have to be cooked very thoroughly before you eat them. But then so do morels, and both morels and these can cause some people to have allergic reactions and get quite ill from it. In fact, Bryn Dettinger tells the story of his wife getting very sick on eating well-cooked morels twice. First time, it wasn't sure it was because of the morels, and they tried it a second time, and same thing happened. But these I've been eating for 25 years or so with, I'll say, little adverse reaction. I did have a little bit of experience once or maybe twice when I did not cook them thoroughly enough, and I got a significant amount of gas from it, bloating. But since I've recognized that and made sure that I cook them very thoroughly every time, I've had no problem at all. But they're very tasty, and some people consider them better than morels. Actually, they're definitely bulkier, heavier, beefier, and
Harder to clean the dirt out of.
yeah, you have to be conscious of that, but that's not too bad. You have to trim the bottom of them very thoroughly because they tend to grow around whatever detritus is there on the forest floor. They're always under pines. They're mycorrhizal with conifers, and they're scattered all along the Mirror Lake Highway from now until June, July.
Did you get these up Mirror Lake Highway?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. My microphone wasn't working when I started talking about them earlier, but yes, these were on the Mirror Lake Highway, about 7,500 feet roughly.
So, Don, are any of the ones that we definitely don't want to eat going to be growing near these? And do they look similar?
They look similar. The only place I have found Gyromitra esculenta is on the north slope, but that doesn't mean that they don't grow or can't occur on the south end or anywhere else along the highway. They're, once you've seen the two of them side by side, and I have pictures of that with both of them together, you can easily tell the difference. The esculenta is more of a reddish brown color, and it has tighter bumps or ridges. No, that's not ridges. Whatever. Yeah. Very smaller reticulations. No, that's not right either. Anyway, they're tighter folds. That's a good word for them. Than the Montana. The reddish brown color, that the stem itself, there's a huge difference. On the Montana, the stem is usually or almost as wide as the mushroom itself, and it'll be inside the stem, it'll have more of the stem tissue that is just kind of a compound stem that is all, I don't know. It's hard to describe. Anyway, it's very wide stem. On the esculenta, it's a narrower stem, probably at least a fourth or less than the diameter of the cap. It's usually reddish colored, reddish brown, and it will be hollow in most cases. There is another difference that's microscopic. Anybody that has a microscope can section them and check that.
What would that be?
The spores on this one, the Montana, have one large central oil droplet, and my compressor. Hang on for a sec.
While he's clearing that up, I also want to mention he was talking about the stem. The stem on Gyromitra montana, I have a hard time really distinguishing from the cap at all, because the stem is just this big. It's like a softball. It's hard to maybe even tell what's the cap and what's the stem unless you go by coloration.
So in this photo, were the stems cut off already?
Yes, they were.
Oh.
And the stems are downward in this photo also, so you don't see them at all.
Yeah.
I apologize for that, but I have an air compressor that kicks on automatically. I started talking about spores. The spores on this one have one central oil droplet with a smaller droplet on either side of that. The esculenta have two oil droplets side by side of the same size. And it's very recognizable when you see it under the microscope.
How do these types of mushrooms release spores? Is it from the folds? Does the wind blow 'em from the folds of the mushroom?
Yeah, the entire surface on this is spore producing. That's ascomycete or ascus. And they'll all, that's
a picture
esculenta
of the,
there.
esculenta. That's probably a little bit darker than you might see it sometimes, but it's definitely definitely darker than the from Montana.
Yeah, all ascomycetes are like this. Their upper surface usually is covered with ascus, which have it's a spore-bearing surface. And under a microscope, they look like a string bean, if you will, just a long pod that has spores inside it, usually 8 per ascus.
There are 2 other gyromitras that I have found with some frequency. One I didn't even call it a gyromitra. It was a Dicina perlata. They now call it Gyromitrum perlatum.
Yes.
Which is almost the same exact color. Sorry, I'm pointing over here. I don't know where it is on your screen. It's almost the same exact color as the Gyromitra montana.
Yes.
But being a mushroom like that, it's just a circle, and it just meets in one little spot on the ground. Usually pretty round. And those are also edible, aren't they, Don?
Yeah, they are. Although they're not as popular as this one. Debatable, I guess, about whether or not they're edible, but I have eaten.
Yeah, but usually when you find one, you find a couple dozen.
Yeah, that's true.
They're nice to get in bulk, I guess. The other gyromitra that I've found with some frequencies, Gyromitra infula, which I believe also has quite a bit of gyromitrin, at least.
Yeah, I think that may be the other one that's considered poisonous.
Which doesn't once you've seen these, you wouldn't mistake them. That one's kind of taller and more looks more like the esculenta, I think, a little bit darker red and a taller 3-lobed cap. But this makes me want to go up into the Uintas now.
Yeah, I've seen them, and they don't really have the folds that either of these do.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No. They're still kind of loby though, kind of lumpy, but not so folded up and brain-like as these. For sure. Well, everybody, how did this go? Is this something we should do again?
Hey, Adam, did you get my pictures?
Yes. Did I?
Or did anyone? I guess anyone who had access to the Foray email.
Let me look. Hold on. Oh, you just sent them like a few minutes ago.
No, I sent them yesterday and I got them. So I'm just curious if anyone else got them. Cause I sent it to you now, assuming that it didn't go through the first time. So I'm about to send them.
Oh my gosh! You know what?
I saw yours actually. They're real good.
And I totally screwed that up. So I'm sorry. Let me go like this. Let me move those out. I'm glad you said something because I totally had.
So there's part 1 and part 2. Let me know if you're missing one.
Nope, I've got about 15 pictures total.
Some of those are quite unique too.
Great. Well, I'm so glad you said something because I would have totally walked right past them. All right, so tell us about these.
Yeah, look at that.
Well, I think it's a coprinoid. I'm guessing mica cap. It was growing under a log, and usually mica or Coprinus micaceus is like tanner, but I wondered if it was like very white because it didn't have a lot of access to the sunlight. And there was only one. And then the next picture is the cut in half.
I don't believe that is the micaceus, and I think that's one of those that's poorly defined, call it that, in the coprinoid mushroom group. I have no idea what species it is.
Like how many like coprinoids would you say you see around here? Is it like under 10? I just don't have a sense
I think
for it.
that's probably a good number, maybe around 10.
Yeah.
And I've seen enough variations in photographs just recently that knowing what I'm looking for now better gives me a little bit of a concept of how many there is. This one has, I think, what's called a vellum over the top of the cap on the outside surface. You can see it's kind of breaking up there.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the deciding factors that it makes it not a micaceous.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And this isn't, for some reason, hold on, let me just share this whole screen. It's not sharing very, very nicely. Yeah, I agree that it's not micaceous, but it looks close. Okay, here we go.
I think also now there is.
Oh, this is the same one.
Yeah, it's the same one.
Coprinus or Coprinellus micaceus is now defined, I think, as a section rather than a species. So there are numerous species under the section micaceus.
That makes sense, because the first time I came to know micaceus very well, and then I found some others that looked quite a bit different. I mean, they still look like, they look quite a bit different, enough that I thought, oh, this isn't micaceus. And I asked Mark Cannon, he said, no, those are micaceus. I was like, oh, well, maybe there's just more variation in the species than I thought. But I think that makes more sense. I didn't think that they were just a different population. They looked like they had a significant difference from what I called micaceus. That's great. Look at those. They're nice and old and crusty. Didn't you have a couple of pictures of these here?
Yeah, they're.
Yeah, so that's breaking. I've broken one off, and you can zoom in on that.
Where were these?
Payson Canyon.
Yeah, I like that little reticulated holes there you can see.
That looks like the pores, and small enough, I think, that might be turkey tail. They have a very small pores on the bottom surface. That's one of the keys to them.
So what did you say it was?
Pores to turkey tail, tremella or tremades.
Versicolor.
Oh yeah, okay.
Versicolor, yeah.
Yes, I believe so. Anyway, the pores are supposed to be in the range of size-wise, I think 3 to 5 per millimeter, which is very small.
Okay, tell us about this.
Will you go back just to the
Yeah.
first one, not the one in my hand, but the one before that? I just thought this was like a weird shape. They almost look like cups. I've never seen turkey tail do that.
Like they're melting almost.
And I found like multiple
Yeah,
places where they were doing that.
They're kind of two layered there, like a full cup instead of just the shell.
But that's good to know. That's cool. Okay, now you can go to, yeah, that one. So pixie cup, and it's like is my guess, and it only appears after fires, which was true in this case.
Geopixus?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I would have called this Geopixus carbonaria.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Then
It
there's
was
one.
in a fire pit?
No. It was in a burn area. The next picture, I'm not sure if the big ones are the same thing, or if it's like a type of Piziza. Or something else.
I saw a couple of pictures a day or so ago that were a purple staining Piziza. I don't remember the species name. That could be what this is. Were they kind of purple colored as it looks in that photo, Ashley?
Yeah, but I didn't try. They were really dry.
Oh, okay.
They felt like almost, yeah, it wasn't like the freshest. I couldn't find any of them very fresh, which was interesting. So I don't even know if like it would have stained, but I'm gonna look into that later. And then if I go back, I'll try to see, because they definitely look different than the Pixie cups.
I do.
Yeah, they do.
This was also in the burn area, and I don't know, but I was it reminded me of a Gallerina. So I don't know if it is. I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
I wouldn't dispute that.
Do you have a feeling of like autumnalis or marginata?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. They're the same mushroom.
Both of those are the same. I mean,
Yes.
Well, we used to call it autumnalis, excuse me, but the name has been changed to marginata.
oh, okay. Interesting. So,
Well done, Ashley, finding a deadly
Well-
poisonous one.
is there anything like what tips it off for you, Don?
Oh, cap color, just size, gill attachment, gill color. I don't see any annulus on it. Gallerina typically has an annulus, but it's easily rubbed off or eradicated somehow or another.
And then
found one-
that mycelium right at the base of the foot, too.
Is that characteristic,
I don't know for sure on that.
or are you just pointing that out?
No, I thought it was. That was I learned about it. I wonder if
I found another one that had an umbo, and I just wondered, like, that sometimes happens in your book.
I think that can happen too.
So
look at
that
this picture
was interesting.
with all that mycelium at the base.
Wow.
I mean, it's not always that pronounced, but the couple of times that I've seen a Gallerina marginata, it's had mycelium pretty clearly fuzziness around the base.
Okay.
In cultivation, we call that fuzzy feet.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mark. Welcome.
Oh, hello. So is that burned material at the bottom? Is that on burned wood?
Yes.
And do you have that specimen like that?
I dried out the cap, but I only have the cap left.
I would take a look at Foliota and maybe even Foliota highlandensis, which occurs this time of year on burned wood. Just a thought.
Will you say the second Foliota?
Highlandensis, like Highland Park or Highland High, highlandensis.
Cool.
Might be super helpful to put names in the chat too.
Oh, yeah. We were supposed to do that. I forgot. Was this was it just by itself, or was it in a cluster?
This is weird because this one was growing at the base of a burned pine tree, like maybe half an inch away from the tree, but probably connected underground to the wood. And then I found one in the middle of like a maple grove, just growing out of the dirt, but I think it wasn't growing out of the dirt. I think it was like growing on some wood that was covered by dirt. But that one was the one I didn't include because it's kind of dried up.
Yeah.
Can't really see what the stem used to look like. It's been abused somehow or another.
Yeah, it was weird. It like ran into something.
Hmm.
Mark, why do you think this is not Galerina?
Because it actually looks more like Foliota to me. If there's any remains of a partial bale, if there's any annuals at all. But the fact that it's got, I mean, the base of the stem here looks like it's got sort of some carbonized stuff on it from wood. And the fact that it's growing in a burned area is more suggestive of Foliota to me. Several of them do that. And if you look in Orson Miller's book, he's got a description of Foliota highlandensis. And it's not the only one. I don't think it grows in a burn site. So I would I'm not saying that's what it is. I just don't know, but I would check that out. It just looks more like, it seems more like that to me.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Foliota highlandensis, and in my book also, this is one nice thing about having this online is we can have our entire library right there, right? In the Michael Davis, Robert Summer, John Minga, they don't describe it, but he does mention it. He said it's similar to Foliota spumosa a little bit, but he says highlandensis has a small, smooth, brown viscid cap and fibrillose stalk and grows in dense groups on burnt wood or soil. So
This particular shot shows some amount of erosion on the face or the edges of the gills. Is that significant?
Can you go back to the previous picture of it?
this is the first one. Oh man, I keep going the wrong direction. This one here.
I thought there was another one showing a better shot of the gill.
No.
That almost looks like a secondary mold has attacked the stem on that one.
Hmm.
Isn't the difference in the spore print like light and dark, or aren't there spore prints like completely different? Or did I make that up?
What color is Foliota?
Galerina usually has rusty colored spores, rusty brown.
And Foliota?
And Foliota can have also brown spores, cinnamon brown, a little bit less. You know, it's hard to tell them apart sometimes.
Yeah.
So then is it the Flammulina that has the white spore print?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's what I was thinking. Thanks.
I don't know what happened to my spore print, but it was brown.
Are the spores significantly different between Foliota and Galerina? I haven't looked at those.
My guess is there would be some difference.
Elliptical roughened enameloid for Marginata.
Do you have a spore print from it, Ashley?
I do, but I don't know where I put it. It was like pretty much what I expected. It was kind of like rusty brown. And I don't base that off of like knowledge. It just seemed like based on the gill color that it would be brown.
Hmm.
We could probably find some skill or some spores, sorry, if you still have the cap,
Yeah, I do.
and take a look at them. Look at dimensions and ornamentation.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. You had another mushroom in here. This little guy.
Yeah.
In a flower pot?
Yep.
Bright yellow.
Yes.
Do you know what it is?
You know what that is, don't you? That little flower pot lepiota. The Cocoprinus birnbaumii.
Yeah, so that's what I guessed. And then I wasn't sure if those little ones, I've never seen this before, were going to turn into the big one, and they did. So.
Is that the name you came up with, Leucocoprinus?
Birnbaumii, yeah.
Birnbaumii, yeah.
So it said it's poisonous, which it seems, it reminds me a lot, like the color reminds me of, I don't know, poisonous things.
It just looks that way, doesn't it? There's another one like that that's pure white. It's called like the onion stalks lepiota, and they look a lot like that, except they're white. They grow in wood chips and things around here. So Leucocoprinus sayespetes, I think is the name of it.
That's good to know. It's really pretty. I'm gonna let the other ones get wider at the top. See how it goes.
Yeah, watch to see if there's any deliquescence on it.
Will do. Didn't get a spore print from this that didn't drop any spores that I could see, even though it's a really fresh one.
Hmm.
Adam, can we go back to the Tramedes versicolor, the turkey tail one, and see if Mark has a thought on that?
Yeah, Mark, so she was pointing out the shape of these. They're not just kind of a shelf. They're almost really a cup. They're rounded around and have two layers of it.
Are those fresh?
Hard to tell.
Did Pierce grow?
I don't think they're fresh.
I think that they're probably just all dried out and shriveled and have assumed that shape because they're dry.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure that that's turkey tails either. I wouldn't bet on it.
Is that another fungal?
Yeah, I think they're old. I think they're last year's, and so they're dried out. What kind of a tree is that, by the way?
I have no idea. So I was using, I found something that said Serena unicolor. Does anyone know about the genus Cerrena?
You know.
Mark's looking right now in Falcon Guide. What is this one?
Falcon Guide.
Oh.
Oh, it's Miller.
In Orson Miller's book.
Which is not the best place to look for that.
Yeah, they're
Still sharing that screen?
Yeah, we can see that.
I thought I just had it on mushroom. Oh, here we go. Oh, arg.
So who put this up?
Adam did. Can you go to images and look at the images of that?
And Ashley, you found them?
Yeah.
Let's see, which image did you want? Oh, yeah, look at that.
And so have you had a chance to check the specimens that you found with that description of the Serena?
Well, I just used Mushroom Expert. Like I didn't key it out or anything because I feel very overwhelmed by polypores. So.
Welcome to the club.
No, the best thing, if we could ever get our hands on it, would be one of the best things would be Gilbertson and Rivarden's Polypores of North America, and it's out of print. You can find it's in 2 volumes. It goes from A to M and then N to Z or something like that. And you can find one of them usually, but not the other. It's almost like you can find the one because libraries dumped them because people stole the other ones because they printed more of one than the other, and then it wasn't ever reprinted after that. But that would be useful to have. Field guides don't pay a lot of attention to these just because they're less interesting than foliates and things. So you get some of the common ones. But that picture you had, I don't think that's, I don't think it's Trametes. I don't think it's turkey tail.
Why don't you put up a picture of the turkey tail so we can compare it?
I would say anything that you find that is that old and so old it's like got barnacles on it. I don't think I'd ever be able to figure out what that was. I'd give up too quickly, I guess.
Well, see, on these turkey tails, and when I've seen them in the wild, it seems that they're more shelf-like, and those other ones that you're looking at seemed more cup-like. You know, like they were in.
It's hard to tell from them being a year old, but the ones I've seen locally, and we've got them in our yard sometimes, have fairly strong reddish and brownish colors in them and are less grayish. Some of these images of turkey tail that they've got look more gray, and I suppose that's just whatever strain is growing, but yeah, they just don't look like turkey tails to me. So.
We're in a Zoom meeting.
Are there any other mushrooms we should look at again now that Mark's here that we wanted to review, or?
That Piziza that Ashley had that was violet colored. There's a Piziza violacea, I believe, that likely could be.
This one, so Mark, so we saw the Geopixus carbonaria around it, and we were wondering about these 2 bigger ones.
Well, I don't know it right off. It looks like 2 different things for sure there to me, though. And that is a violet color in the 2 larger ones. A grayish violet, actual violet.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know on that. And that's a different one, right?
Yeah, those were, I think those were the Geopixus, weren't they?
Yeah.
Was this Geopixus? I'm not sure about that.
It's dry. No, you're right. That actually has like almost like a orange peel type color. The color is very different. There's tons of these, like thousands.
And this was in a burn area, you said?
Yeah.
See, I've seen Geopixus carbonaria that are what I call that, anywhere from brownish to grayish to orange. So this could well be still, but it looks a little bit different to me. Usually, maybe it's just dried out more
Yeah, it looks pretty dry.
as opposed to these that I almost think they're more jellyish almost than those that we were just looking at. But they could all be the same thing.
Well, I would spend a few minutes looking in Ascomycetes of North America, the big book, the big one with the color plates. Because I think I've seen both of those in there, but I just can't, I don't know them.
Let me show you one more, Mark. This let's see. There are a couple of Caprinus. Oh, this one. Found this in, and I find there are a lot of these around my house in the mulch. And I haven't. I think I need a book on the coprinoids, just because there seems like there's so many around that are subtly different.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to say what that's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen them in. I recognize that. We've had it at our house in mulch that came from the landfill. Their compost they made. It was real prevalent in that stuff. And I don't know if you remember last year when you came over the corner where there's the Foray stop by our house. The yard was full of these. Same or nearly the same thing. But I've never been able to identify it. So that's that.
Yeah, there's this other one that Ashley found too.
And that looks like it's got a lot of interesting detail, a lot of interesting features to look at, but I don't know what that is.
Mark, I'm finding. Go ahead, Mark.
I wonder if that's a younger one of the one that we just looked at. It has the little veil remnants on the caps that, seem to be present on those, but have disappeared on the previous picture.
Yeah, that material on the cap is called vellum, according to the latest definitions.
Yeah.
And
it
breaks up into particles.
Remnant of the sort of universal veil that they have.
Yeah. I'm learning that there are many, many different species of coprinoid mushrooms, and a lot of them are not even defined in the English language yet. A lot of them are coming from, I guess, Germany, Belgium, Europe anyway, and are not in the English language. If you can read the foreign languages, I guess you can find the information on it, but it's not available to us.
And if people aren't getting stir crazy, I do have one mushroom that I've found that I'm fairly certain is an artist conch, but does anybody want to see it?
Yeah. Go for it.
Sure.
Okay. Can you guys see this one?
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm guessing that it's Ganoderma. Kind of looked pretty dry to me, but it was on rotting wood.
Well, looks like a Ganoderma. Looks like last year's.
You didn't dig it out, huh?
Well, So it's just up a canyon really near to me. So I figured if I came up with a cool idea to draw on it, then I would harvest it. But without that, I didn't feel like, I don't know, pulling it up, I guess. But it did look like it had, you know, like a white spore underbelly. I don't know, I couldn't see like spores on the ground underneath it, so I don't know what the spore color was.
It's pretty dry and hard on the top.
Yeah. I mean, everything has seemed really, really dry, but yeah, it was hard. It wasn't spongy.
The underneath, the underside looks fresh to me in this picture. It's a little early for something to get to be that size, though.
Well, and I also wonder if it's maybe been growing there for a while. I don't know, maybe, because it seemed pretty large to me. You know, it was definitely bigger than my hand.
Is Ganoderma an annual mushroom, or is it perennial?
I don't know that. I'm just wondering that myself. I know that the Ganoderma lucidum that we have around here on the native oaks usually dries up and is done after the first frost. Some of the other ones are perennial, and they just sit there, and then there's a new band of growth the following year. And I'm not positive that's Ganoderma. It sort of looks like Applanatum to me, but there's more different kinds of Ganodermas too.
Just falls in the batch of hard to identify conchs that aren't edible, so people aren't as interested in them. I guess, I mean, there's probably more than one that, you know, is an artist conch, right? As long as they have a white, you know, spore producing, staining side, they can be used that way.
Yeah, the Ganoderma lucidum has a pore surface like that stains. They're a little harder to find. The artist conch is kind of unique that way, I think. Have you ever tried drawing on the undersides of other kinds?
Well, I mean, I've got the ones that Stephanie, you know, identified and pointed out up the East Canyon 2 forays
Yes, well, that's the real deal there.
But yeah, this one seems a lot darker brown than the one that, you know, is on the log, but so, you know, mushrooms on mushrooms makes sense. Very meta.
The spores on those did you so it looks like there's maybe are those oak leaves? Looks like there's some oak leaves there, a mixture of things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the wood is?
I don't. It was just a stump without like the rest of the log there. And I'm also even more amateur at tree identification than I wish I was.
I'll say
it's not quite right. Go ahead.
That stump looks very large to be an oak stump, or scrub oak stump.
Oh yeah, the stump was probably at least 2 or 3 feet in diameter.
Yeah, so it might have been a cottonwood or something.
Yeah, and there were other cottonwoods around it growing as well. I was hoping for oysters, hoping. Oh, looks like there's a little snail, maybe. Anyways.
I'm pretty sure that the me see if I can just look up one thing. Unless anybody knows right off if Ganoderma is a brown rotter or a white rotter. Anybody knows right off? To look it up and make sure I can.
I'm looking it up, Mark.
I don't know.
I'll let you know in a minute
That
here.
looks like pretty advanced white rot around that. And so that'd help with identifying it.
While they're looking that up, what do you guys think about this format? Was it useful? Was it interesting? Was it something we want to repeat?
Well, I think so, as long as people are not actually getting together physically in the same place, then this is pretty good.
Yeah.
Can you see me, or can you just hear me?
Samples.
No, we can't see you.
Okay. Well, I'm here nevertheless.
I
I'm
appreciate
not sure it's
the,
showing anything.
but I cannot add much to anything. I'm such a beginner. If I get a shaggy mane, I think I'm an expert, and that's about it.
Glad you're here. Part of the goal of this is that we can look at what we've got and we can really discuss in more detail some of these mushrooms and look at them more carefully and have our whole library next to us and so forth, and maybe get a little bit more information than we can out in the field always.
Well, thank you very much.
Now we can see.
I will leave the meeting. Bye-bye.
Hi.
Right. Thanks,
Bye.
Larry. Bye-bye.
Ganoderma applanatum is a white rotor.
So that's just one identifying feature, but that would account for, if it was a Ganoderma, the spongy, stringy kind of look of the wood behind it. In it, it's decomposing the lignin and leaving the cellulose stuff behind.
So are we still accepting pictures?
Yeah, there are a couple more that came in. Let's,
Yeah, I just sent something. We were up Mill Creek a couple of days ago and saw that as I was parking the car.
Let me save these here. Okay, let's see if I can put these back up here.
Do your magic.
There we go. Oh, I'm not sharing it.
Oh, well.
There we go. A couple more pictures here of it looks like. Were these?
That's the underside of it.
I mean, were these soft and squishy at all, or were they just?
Yeah, they weren't really hard, no. And that's the log. I got out of the car and I just looked up the hill and I saw that log and it was, yeah, right there. And it had like 1 million holes in the wood, but it looked like it had gills on it. I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, I've only a couple of times found a really, really fresh conch like this that I felt like was still growing and young. That's
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Can we see the first picture again?
Yeah.
And then we zoom in on that upper one.
Unfortunately, there's not. That's as far as I can get in. It's already kind of pretty pixelated on my screen.
Yeah, my camera sucks. But that wood, I guess it's, I don't know, maybe it's a cottonwood, but it had like 1 million holes in it. Maybe those are insects or something.
It looks like conifer bark to me.
Yeah, it's just some nasty thing growing on wood.
I think Foray pinicola. Is it a pine, maybe?
Possibly, yeah. Probably.
It looks like pine bark.
If I had to take a wild guess, I'd say Foray pinicola.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah. Not too much detail there. Great. Well, it is 5:30, and I'm not opposed to leaving people to sit here and as you will, but I think my time's about up.
Well, the mushrooms are about up, I guess.
I think we should do this again. I think we should do it again.
I think it's too bad we didn't get many other participants.
Yeah.
I also wonder if time would help. Like, if we make another Facebook event that's for next month, it'll have a little bit more time to get more people interested in planning it. Because I think we only had about 2 weeks for this one.
And maybe trying it in an evening when people aren't actually out foraging might increase attendance.
Yeah, we could try.
Or Saturday morning. I mean, the Foray's usually on a Saturday morning. I wonder if that, if we did it at 9 or 10 a.m. when people would normally be meeting us to go out foraging. And I mean, I guess they probably need to go find stuff, but I don't know. Just a thought.
Well, my
It
schedule
doesn't seem to be a lot of stuff. It's been, did I see that this was one of the driest Aprils on record?
Yeah, I think it was a record.
The record is 0.46 inches, and we are at 0.26 inches. So we crushed the record.
Wow.
So, it's pretty dry, pretty poor for mushrooms.
Yeah, the average is 1.99.
Wow.
I don't have a picture, but Adam, you saw that Pineolus in the corral last week. A couple more have come up, so it's, there's enough moisture, enough humidity in the ground over on the south side, the north facing side. So there are a few of those coming up. Pretty interesting when there's nothing else.
When there's nothing else, which is why I was pulling up the Caprinas to look at, because otherwise those were already kind of dried up, and I probably wouldn't have. But I did find the one oyster by just right next door to my house. Oh, you weren't here for this, huh? There's just a cottonwood stump.
I have to work my tail off.
A neighbor of ours has had those coming out of his grow boxes. He has put together these raised beds, and they're growing on the wood in his raised beds.
Nice.
Told him to forget the clothes, and collect the oyster mushrooms. Anyway, May, what about 10 o'clock? First Saturday of May, we just have the schedule like it was in the past.
That'd be good with that.
Me.
June.
Yeah, it would be June, wouldn't it? Oh, I don't know what month it is still.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I missed that.
So Saturday,
be-
June 6th.
June 6th. Yeah.
It'd be the 6th. 10 a.m.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Worth a try.
Is that too